Okay, so this is going to be about, about how the surgery went. Now, this is going to be specifically to Memorial Sloan Kettering, but I'm assuming that most hospitals are going to be similar. So my husband and I flew to New York on a Thursday. On Friday morning early, we went out to dinner, had a great time. Friday morning early, we had my pre-op consult. Met with Dr. Yun and his nurse and a couple other people. Did a physical exam, took my blood, did an EKG, did x-rays, so be prepared for it to be a little bit longer. Then when we were finished with all of that and we left and went to my last big meal, which was lunch, great Italian restaurant, and then kind of walked around and enjoyed the city the rest of the day. It was fun, had a good time. They called in the afternoon to let me know what time my surgery was, which was going to be first thing in the morning. So we had to get up around 5, I guess, in the morning. We had to be in the hospital at some crazy time, like 5:30 or something in the morning. And they took me in pretty quickly on the day of surgery. And one thing you need to know, if you have someone who's going to be staying in the hospital with you, and you don't have like a place to store your luggage, there is a place at the hospital called the Flower Room, which is right inside the entry if you're at Memorial. You just ask the guys at the front and they'll let you store your luggage in the front until you get your room. So that was a big help because we checked out of the hotel that morning. Anyway, they took me in, they prepped me. Again, they're going to ask you your name and your birth date a million times because they don't want to take the wrong person's stomach out. I appreciate that. They are going to take your blood pressure and blah, blah, blah. Then the guy will come in and give you an epidural, and that'll make you start to feel a little bit woozy. And it was pretty seamless. I guess they took me in around 8:30 in the end. And so that was it. Helmet stayed with me in the prep room until it was time. So that was nice. And then, of course, they roll you in and they talk to you and they put a mask on your face, and then you're waking up in recovery. When I first woke up in recovery, I remember feeling nauseated and a little bit of pain, which they asked me immediately when I woke up. They gave me drugs. My husband was only allowed to come into the recovery room for a brief period of time, and I was there for about 7 hours because we were waiting for my room to open up. The surgery only took about 2 hours or maybe even a little less, so it was pretty quick. There were no complications, which was great. My sister had more complications, so her surgery, I think, was closer to 4 hours because they found that she had some issues with her esophagus. And the one thing that kind of I remember a lot about that day, whenever I've had an epidural with narcotics, I itch like crazy. I mean, I don't know if it's an allergy. I know everyone itches, but it gets pretty crazy for me. So they had to give me something for that. That became an issue as we went through the next several days, so they ended up having to do something different with my pain meds, but just keep that in mind. Again, I slept most of the day, but that evening I wanted to get up and try to walk. And I stood up and took about 4 or 5 steps and felt so dizzy I thought I was going to fall down, so they took me back to my bed. But at least I got up, and day of surgery, you can do it. I don't recommend it, but you can do it. And, another thing to keep in mind is, depending on where you are, you're probably going to be in a shared room. We were in a shared room, and there was a lady who came in later in the evening. She was by herself, and she was older, so she needed a lot of help throughout the night. So it was between the visits of them coming to check on me and checking on her, it was a pretty sleepless night, but you expect that in the hospital. They had a chair that Helmut could sleep on, and he ended up bringing all of our luggage to the room, and we just kind of piled it in the corner. And that worked out fine. You know, he could have gone to a hotel, but I really did need him there, especially for the first 3 or 4 nights. Well, really the whole time, because you're hooked up to IVs and a catheter and the epidural, and you know, you get up at night to go to the restroom once they take the catheter out, and you're all wrapped up in your tubes and you don't know which way to go. So it is helpful to have someone there, and if you don't, you can do it. You just call the nurse. It's no big deal. So that was the surgery day. The next day, the itching continued to the point where I was just crazy. They gave me a cream, didn't really work. I tried walking in the morning, but I was, again, too dizzy, and they took my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was super low, so they had to change out the pain meds because the pain med could have been causing that, blah, blah, blah. They changed it to a tramadol, I believe is the name of it, which was a push thing, so it wasn't going through the epidural. So the itching got better, the dizziness got better, the low blood pressure got better, and that day I was actually able to walk about 8 laps around the hospital. You'll know all about walking the laps. It's the only thing that gives you some relief from the discomfort. You get really bloated, and your bowels are completely asleep. You got to get them going again. So they really recommend that you walk, and I mean, you don't walk to the point of pain, but certainly try to push yourself, because the more you walk, I think the sooner you're going to get out of the hospital. The anesthesia was slowly wearing off on Sunday. I was still pretty numb around my incision area, so that was nice because you couldn't really feel anything. But the worst part from that day for the next 3 or 4 days was the taste in my mouth. They don't let you, at least Dr. Yuen does not let you drink anything, no ice chips. You do get a sponge that you can kind of swab your mouth out with, but you don't get to drink anything. Surgery's on Saturday. You don't get to, Friday night you have to stop drinking. You don't get to drink anything until Wednesday afternoon if you pass the leak test. That was tough. Monday I took a shower with some help from the nurse. I walked a lot more than I did the day before. I still had some itching. They kept trying to, I think managing the itching and the pain and the nausea is the big thing that they try to do the first 3 days. So Monday and Tuesday were not fun. That awful taste in your mouth, just, ugh. And then I was having high blood pressure later on instead of low blood pressure, which they tried to figure that out too. It's probably just from the pain. But I walked a lot, as much as I could, and they kept changing. They finally got my pain medicine figured out so that it was mainly coming from the push. I had something called bupivacaine that was going into the epidural, and it was just constant coming through. But the push stuff that I could control myself was a couple of different narcotics, and that helped a lot because it stopped the itching because it wasn't going in the epidural. And on Wednesday, I had my leak test, and that was not fun. I'm just going to warn you. It was not fun. Stuff tastes terrible. You have to take 6 huge gulps while they take x-rays of it going down. You're standing awkwardly on this metal table. But it was worth it because I passed, and then when I got back to the room, they let me drink water for the first time since Friday. And that was a joyful thing. Of course, little sips, but of course I took a big gulp and forgot, and then I got all this air, and so that was big. Took another shower, and that evening I actually walked in a full hour after walking during the day. I just, walk, because the bloating starts to stretch the incision, and you got to get things working. You got to get gas going. You got to go to the bathroom. Fun stuff. So that is through Wednesday, and I'll go back with Thursday.